Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri
I have 1769. Uh-oh. Is that not, I thought I had the verse about Murari Gupta, so we're going to talk about him, whatever the verse is today. Yeah, it was chapter 17. Did I get that wrong? Uh-oh. Well, it's just a great opportunity. I had a great time thinking about Murari Gupta, so we'll talk about him today. So this is not the right verse? Well, I waste time doing that. Well, anyway, we're going to do this verse today. I don't know if that's the Murari Gupta verse is the verse that you have. It's just one verse. There's no purport at all. 69? Okay, so I got that right. So I'll just chant the thing. Murari Gupta Mukhe Suni Rama Guna Grama Lalite Lakila Tandra Rama Dasa Nama Murari Gupta Mukhe Suni Rama Guna Grama Lalate Likila Tandra Rama Dasa Nama. I'll just read the word for word since it's not up there. Murari Gupta of Murari Gupta, Mukhe, from the mouth, Suni, hearing, Rama of Lord Ramachandra, Guna Grama, glories, Lalate, on the forehead, Likila, wrote, Tanra of Murari Gupta, Ramadas, the eternal servant of Lord Ramachandra, and Nama, the name. Translation and no purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. So it's just a tiny verse. Murari Gupta was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. When Lord Caitanya heard Lord Ramachandra's glories from his mouth, he immediately wrote on his forehead, Ramadas, the eternal servant of Lord Ramachandra. So as there was no purport, I did a little bit of research just for my own interest, but perhaps it'll be interesting to you just to make a connection with what this verse is really about. And Mahaprabhu, he used to teach the principle of devotion to one's worshipable deity through Murari Gupta. And he was stressing that a person cannot advance in devotional service without having a devotion for a particular worshipable deity, otherwise called an Ishta Devata. So we see here on our altars, we have Shri Shri Gauritai, Sri Radha Govardhana, and then Krishna Balaram, and you have a Giriraj, and sometimes, and we have Jagannath. Maybe those of you who are new don't know Jagannath, Balaram, Subhadra. Some people have in their homes smaller versions of these various deities, and they become so dedicated to those deities. They're handed down generation after generation. They become their family worshipable deity, and there's an incredible amount of energy and devotional, we would call Shakti, that comes with being totally absorbed in worshiping one's worshipable deity. Some devotees, they worship Lord Nishingadev, that's their focus, their puja. Some people have Shalagram Shila or Mini in their home. It's really amazing how many ways Krishna's appearing or expressing himself, and in different moods and pastimes. So they're all these different deities. They have a lila or a pastime around that. So it's a very intimate and personal kind of exchange. So Murari Gupta, he was considered to be an incarnation of Hanuman, which, if you don't know the story of Ram, I'm not going to tell it here, but he was the monkey servant of Lord Caitanya, Lord Ram, in the pastime of Sita, Ram, Lakshman, and Hanuman. Some of our temples, instead of having Krishna Balaram, they have the whole Sita, Ram, Lakshman, and Hanuman will be there as the third altar. On one occasion, which is related to this verse, Mahaprabhu, he decided to test Murari Gupta's loyalty to his worshipable deity Ram by telling him that, well, actually you should be worshiping Krishna, not Ram, because, Lord Chaitanya's incarnation of Krishna, and he had taken shelter of Lord Chaitanya, and he was trying to get him to in a tricky way, to try to get him to shift his loyalty to Lord Krishna instead of Ram. Of course, Ramachandra is also none other than Krishna. But he wanted to test how devoted he was to his worshipable deity. So he's telling, in order to try and convince Murari Gupta, he's telling him that, well, because Krishna is the ocean of all the flavors of devotional life, the joy to be had in worshiping Krishna can't be had in service to any other form of the Lord. And so Murari Gupta, he promised Lord Caitanya that he would do as he would advise, and he would worship Krishna instead of Ramachandra. But when he went home, after making that promise, he was so anxious about it that he stayed up all night crying in anxiety that he would have to give up the lotus feet of his Ishtadeva, his worshipable deity, Ramachandra. Just the thought of it made him upset. And so he stayed awake all night, weeping and anxious. What is he going to do? He's, made this promise, and he's obviously a devotee of Lord Caitanya. He's taken shelter of him, and he's given him this really difficult instruction that he can't really abide by, and what is he going to do? So the next morning, he goes to Lord Caitanya, and he falls at his feet with tears in his eyes, and he says to Lord Caitanya, well, I've sold my head to Lord Ramachandra. I can't remove it from his feet, for as soon as I try, it causes me great pain. I cannot give up the lotus feet of Raghunath, which is another name for Lord Ram, even though this means disobeying you. What can I do? Oh, merciful one, please allow me to give up my life here before you rather than suffer this fate. So he's between a rock and a hard place. He's rather going to kill himself rather than figure it out. Either way, it's just not the right solution. So Murari Gupta, he says, both Narayan, the husband of Lakshmi, and Ramachandra, the husband of Sita, are equally the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But even so, the lotus-eyed Ram alone is everything to me. What can I do? So Lord Caitanya, he was actually very happy to hear that. Murari Gupta, he was completely surprised that Lord Caitanya, he's like, wow, your devotional attitude is so unshakable. And he says, you are actually Hanuman himself, the eternal servant of Ramachandra. And why on earth would you want to give up worshiping the feet of Lord Ramachandra? So he had kind of tested him, and it created so much anxiety that he was able to manifest his devotion. And then Lord Caitanya said, well, there's no reason really why you should give up this worship, because, Ramachandra is non-different than myself or Krishna. There is a pastime where Lord Caitanya, he manifests himself as Sadbhuja, where he had two arms are Krishna playing the flute, blue arms, and then green arms with Lord Ramachandra with a bow and an arrow. I used to have a little deity of Sadbhuja, and it was very, very difficult to make outfits for those 6 arms that we had. Krishna wore capes because he had all these little holes and all these little things to put on, but very ecstatic deity. And but Lord Caitanya, he manifests, I believe, to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya this form so that he could understand that Lord Caitanya is non-different than all these different incarnations. And Lord Caitanya says to Murari Gupta, that devotee who does not abandon his worshipable deity's lotus feet is truly glorious. Glorious, too, is that Lord who does not abandon his devotee. So I'm sure, just reading that story and how much anxiety, we've all had that experience where you're between a rock and a hard place and you're trying to figure it out, and you're sweating it out all night long, and then in the morning you realize, oh, it's totally not what I thought. And Lord Caitanya now soothes him and says, don't worry, you can keep your worship of me and also Lord Ramachandra. So in response to Lord Chaitanya's praising Murari Gupta for his unflinching devotion to Lord Ramachandra, Murari Gupta, he recites this verse. Since I am but a poor, sinful Brahmana bandhu, not Brahmanically qualified, although born in a Brahmana family, and you, Lord Krishna, are the shelter of the goddess of fortune, It's simply wonderful, my dear Lord Krishna, that you have embraced me with your arms. And Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the purport of this particular verse, where he's explaining that this actually was spoken by Sudam Brahmana in the presence of Lord Krishna in a different pastime, a different story. And the backstory of Sudam Brahmana, his relationship with Krishna, is that they had been childhood friends and schoolmates at the same Gurukul, and they both studied under the tutelage or the guidance of Sandipani Muni, who was their guru teacher. But after their education, having grown up, and that happens all the time, you go to school with someone and then you graduate and you go away and you don't see them for 30, 40, 50 years, which is sort of what happened with Krishna and Sudama. They'd lost touch, and yet they still had this heart connection that they thought of each other fondly. They still had this deep love. And of course, Krishna, at a certain point, he had his pastimes in Dwarka, where he had a lot of opulence and royalty, and Sudama, on the other hand, was very, very poor. He was so poor as a Brahmana that he was starving. Him and his wife were emaciated, and they were starving. And his wife urged him, go to your friend. Krishna's your friend. He's got so much. Why would he not help you? He loves you so much. And Sudama, nobody likes to go and beg for help, and, So, but anyway, his wives can do. They can help from the back. And so he went, and the only thing he had to give as a gift, because it's good manners to come with a gift to someone's home, as he had this teeny little bag of chipped rice, cracked rice that he had. And so he's walking, he's going down to see Krishna. I don't know how far the walk is. And he arrives, and Krishna is so happy to see him that he embraces him, that, I haven't seen you in so long. He didn't think, this is some poor guy with, of course, he didn't show his bag. He had his little bag behind his back. And Krishna, who's in the heart of everyone, he knew he had some little gift there hiding. And he said, hey, what do you have there? You've got something for me. What have you got? And he was so embarrassed. Sudama pulls up this little ratty little bag of chipped rice, and Lord Krishna was so touched that he gave everything he had. He didn't have anything. That was like the last rim or thread of food. And after that, they had nothing. And so he gave everything. And Krishna embraced him for his thoughtful gift, and that he had given it with such deep, heartfelt love. And so Sudama was totally humiliated by the kindness of Krishna, and he recites this same verse that I just recited, but now you know the backstory. Since I am but a poor, sinful Brahmana bandhu, not Brahmanically qualified, although born in a Brahmana family, and you, Lord Krishna, are the shelter of the goddess of fortune, it is simply wonderful that you have embraced me with your arms. There's other pastimes, another one that comes to mind of a Sanatana Goswami who broke out in these boils. He was, in India, when you eat, your body gets overheated, you get these boils. I know I used to have boils, and they're not comfortable, but this particular moment, Sanatana Goswami had oozing boils, and Lord Caitanya embraced him also, and he was like, oh God, this is so horrible that now my pus coming from my body is getting on the Lord's body. So very, very humiliated at that. In Srila Prabhupada, he's commenting that this and other verses in Srimad Bhagavatam illustrate that although Krishna is so great, he's not possible to satisfy him. There's just nothing in the gross or the subtle material realm that's going to impress Krishna. He's the owner of everything. He's the source of everything. What on earth can you give him that he needs? He doesn't need anything. He has everything. But Prabhupada is saying that if a person like Sudama or Murari Gupta offer anything with love and devotion, the Lord will accept it with satisfaction. We also know from the Bhagavad Gita the same thing. If one offers me with a little fruit, water, flower, with devotion, I will accept it. So this is a theme throughout all of our literature, that there's no material qualification that can make you more favorable or less favorable just because you have beauty or education or you have money, that's not going to get yourself into Krishna's heart. It's only by your own heartfelt love that will win Krishna's favor. So we see in these pastimes that the Lord embraced them because they were his beloved devotees, not due to any material qualification. And Prabhupada, he points to the purports of Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, where he elaborately discusses this subject, that there's just no qualification in this material world that can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet everything becomes successful simply through the development of devotional service to the Lord. Now, Prabhupada then in this purport, he's explaining, it's not the purport to this verse today, but some of them that I have been taking quotes from, that the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, otherwise known as the Hare Krishna people, they can't even call themselves Brahma Bandhus. In fact, we all come from non-Brahminical families, probably on the less than Sudras, because, many of us have done all kinds of things that are unmentionable, and we're not born even in a Brahmana family, and we don't have those qualities at all of a person who is cultured. And so Srila Prabhupada is saying that the only means for satisfying Krishna is to pursue this injunction of Lord Caitanya, who says, Yare deka tare Krishna, tare kaha Krishna upadesh, amara agyaya guru hana tara idash, which means, whomever you meet, instruct them on the teachings of Krishna, and in this way, on my order, become a spiritual master and deliver the people of this country. This is a really clear instruction that not only Srila Prabhupada, but Lord Chaitanya himself is instructing everybody to become a spiritual master. He says it right here, everybody. And there was, in the beginning of the movement, probably some of you know Malati and Shyamasundara. They've written some memories. And their daughter Saraswati was the very first child born in the Hare Krishna movement. And it was a very auspicious moment. Srila Prabhupada had a fire sacrifice for her, celebrating. This is the first Gaudiya Vaishnava in the West to take up Krishna consciousness. And she only knew one thing to say: Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And she would go out on Harinam and book distribution with Malati and Shyamasundara, and she would just approach people. Krishna is the Supreme Personality, like a little kid, Krishna is the Supreme. And Prabhupada said, that's perfect preaching. You don't need to. And sometimes we think that we need to be very philosophically adept to be able to go out and share what we've learned. And Prabhupada, gosh, in the beginning of the movement, he would just throw us all out there, and whatever you learned, you share, and people ask questions, and you may not know the answers, but the next time you come out, you will know the answers because you will have gone home and figured out or asked questions, what is the answer to that? And so in this way, it's a meditation of learning and growing by sharing what we've learned. In fact, Srila Prabhupada says that if we don't share what we've learned, this knowledge makes us envious and it rots in our hearts. So it's not just something we like to do, it is actually part of our sadhana to share, to be able to talk about and explain what we've learned to others, so that they can also learn. Prabhupada explains that simply trying to follow the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by speaking to the people of the world about Bhagavad Gita as it is will make us qualified to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it sounds simple. Interestingly enough, people find that hard to do because we're shy, or we don't feel confident, or we think we don't know enough. But it's really an instruction that we all carry on our heads. There's just a few fun facts that I can throw out here beyond. There's lots of things about Murari Gupta. One thing that I was surprised, and I'm surprised I didn't know this already, but he was responsible for providing information about Lord Chaitanya's early life. It was only his notebooks that give us this information of Lord Chaitanya as a teenager, as Nimai Pandit, because they were schoolmates. And so he was an eyewitness growing up in the same generation, in the same town, in the same school with Lord Chaitanya, and he must have kept a notebook. Now, I know I've been to some of the archives in Bengal, and they are not having notebooks like we do. They have bamboo leaves or something, and I don't know how he was doing that, but apparently back then they had little dried mango leaves, or I don't know, what are they, papyruses or something. And then, they take those as pages and they link them all together, and it's like a little ring binder book. So he must have had some way to capture, but in a notebook. That was in his note, they called notebooks. And the later pastimes were also recorded in notebooks by Swarup Damodar, who was Lord Chaitanya's constant companion and secretary. And scholars today will, as they evaluate biographies, when somebody writes a biography about another person, particularly a renowned other person, a famous person, they will consider the memoirs or the biographies of people who are eyewitnesses and writing in notebooks in a contemporary way in the moment things were happening to be more authorized than those memoirs or biographies that are done 30 years later. And so probably one of the most authorized biographies of Srila Prabhupada are the Transcendental Diaries of Harisari, because he was keeping, as he traveled, Srila Prabhupada, he was keeping notes every single day. It was like he's got 3 volumes of his experience as his personal secretary. So those are really good accurate accounts of Srila Prabhupada's. There's much more to Prabhupada's life than Harisari's diary also. But it's something happens. 50 years later, if you try to remember myself, what I was thinking as a 20-year-old in the Hare Krishna movement, there's a whole lot of room for embellishing that. Or did I really remember that? Did it really happen? Did it happen the way I remember it? Someone who was there at that same time may have remembered it a different way. And so now it shifts a bit, the memory. So this is why we would consider the writings of Caitanya Caritamrita to be pretty authorized, because you have 2 eyewitnesses who are writing and recording in the moment. Murari Gupta, he's considered to be the 21st branch of the tree or the lineage of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if you can imagine Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and having his disciples who were going out, obviously if they were instructed to go out and preach, they all had people who were listening to them. Just like today, you have people going out, they have namahatas, bhakti vrikshas, and so people they take their knowledge from the person they meet, and then they share what they've shared. And so there were many, many branches that went out from Lord Chaitanya. And so Murari Gupta is considered to be the storehouse of love of Godhead, because he just so freely gave it out, this knowledge of Lord Chaitanya, and connecting people to the holy name and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And his humility and meekness was so profound that it melted the heart of Lord Chaitanya. In fact, Lord Chaitanya was so conquered by the love and humility of Murari Gupta that sometimes when he wasn't there, like Lord Chaitanya would come and give audience, and he would look into the group of people to see where Murari Gupta was. And if he wasn't in the darshan or the kirtan or something, he would say, "Where is he?" He would look for him. And then the other devotees would have to run and get him. And when he would come before the Lord would get up to embrace him, and then Murari Gupta, he would step back. He would like, no, don't touch me. And I can imagine that having grown up with Lord Chaitanya and having that familiar relationship, as he surrendered more and more to him and realized him as his spiritual master, that kind of shifted, because he was afraid. Familiarity breeds contempt, that if I get too familiar, I might forget who I'm dealing with. And I think that's a real instruction for a lot of us. I know Srila Prabhupada, same thing. Danger, getting too close, that you see him as an ordinary person rather than the carrier of divine wisdom. And so even with the deities, we have so many boundaries. We close the curtain, you take a bath, you put on fresh clothes to approach. We don't just march through that way. There's a whole protocol. You ring a bell, you do this and that to enter the room and to prepare. And that's very helpful for us not to become just so familiar that, oh gosh, these are some really attractive knickknacks. So we've got some marble knickknacks on there, and isn't that cute? And there's statues, like so many of the, some organizations, they have a statue of their founder, their teacher. And Prabhupada laughs. Sometimes they'll be out in the garden and there'll be bird poop all over them. And Prabhupada goes, yeah, that's so much how they honor their founder, is they've got the who's sitting out in the garden. Nobody's cleaning every day. And like we, every day there's bathing and dressing. And there's a whole meditation to keeping, Krishna, who is he's spiritually there. He's really there. And his thoughts are things. And as long as we acknowledge Krishna is there and treat Krishna as he is physically, emotionally, spiritually there, then he manifests himself as the Supreme Person. So I think Murari Gupta was probably a little scared of, becoming too familiar. Prabhupada explains also that Murari Gupta, he was born into a physician's family. He was a physician himself, and that's how he maintained his family. Sometimes when he would come into the association devotees, there's, devotees who didn't really understand the depth of his devotion. They would see, oh, you're a physician, you're working. This is not a devotional activity. And Lord Caitanya would clarify that this is not just a normal guy who's out there making a living. He was simultaneously earning his living, maintaining his family, and at the same time, he was preaching Krishna consciousness. He had an enormous following of people as he told people about Krishna. So he was satisfying his instruction from Lord Caitanya as well as maintaining his family. And Prabhupada says that he considered Murari Gupta to be an ideal householder because he was not only a devotee of Lord Ramachandra and Lord Caitanya, but he also maintained his family and satisfied the Lord's. And he never accepted charity or money from friends or from anyone. Rather, he maintained his family with his own earnings. And Prabhupada comments here that every householder should engage themselves in their own occupational duty and should simply accept whatever they earn by their profession. So whether one's a priest or a teacher, that's one Brahminical profession, or maybe a manager, a kshatriya could be a military person, maybe through real estate or being a property owner that rents property, a farmer, growing vegetables or produce to sell. Certainly restaurants would be a way to distribute food, or a business person, or just a working class person who makes money by doing menial service to others, or maybe engaged in crafts, arts and crafts. But whatever you do, it's all okay to do it. I mean, in fact, it's wanted that people earn a living and they maintain themselves by an honest means, and then also do that for Krishna, to add that piece, to offer something to Krishna back, to try and make their home a temple, use it for educational purposes, bring people into the home and share. If you live close enough, you can come here and do that also. Prabhupada explains that Murari Gupta, he could treat both bodily and spiritual diseases because as a physician, he knew the art and science of healing a person's body, and he also knew the science of the soul because he was a devotee. So he was learning from Lord Caitanya how to heal people spiritually. And Prabhupada comments that actually, spiritual dis-ease, being vacant, unconnected to the source of one's life is a lot of the reason, in fact, primarily the reason why people have physical imbalances is because they're out of alignment with the Lord in their heart. Prabhupada explains that Murari's life is an example to the service of humanity. He wasn't just taking care of his own family, but he was thinking, how can I relieve human suffering by giving Krishna consciousness? And Prabhupada's explaining how there's two kinds of diseases. I just described it. Diseases pertaining to the body, which is material disease, and the primary disease of humanity is their spiritual disease or their spiritual starvation. Prabhupada is explaining here the living entity or living being is eternal, but due to association with material energy, they are subjected to repeated birth, old age, disease, and death. And he again glorifies that the physicians of the modern day should take after Murari Gupta. They should not only know how to heal the physical body, but they should also incorporate spirituality into their practice. Some Ayurvedic doctors may do that. There are all kinds of different healers today who, claim to be able to heal people's bodies in so many ways. But Prabhupada is saying, if you are a healer, you need to also present, help people get connected to the source of their life as well, which is a really important part of healing. See if there's any other. There's so many different little snippets. It's funny because if you read or plug in Murari Gupta, a whole smattering of one sentence pastimes, which I imagine are just taken from the notebooks of Murari Gupta. Like, this happened, and then that happened. Well, and then that happened. So there's no elaboration on it. It just, this is what happened. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. And see maybe if there is any additions. Oh, no, there's one little thing that he writes in his notebook. The story about him and Nimai Pandit when he was a teenager child, like they must have been pubescent teenagers, and they'd get in these arguments because Nimai Pandit was quite a prolific scholar even as a young boy, and he would like to debate with people because he could always defeat them. And Murari Gupta was, in age-wise, he was older than Nimai, but they would all wrestle. You know, first of all, they'd start arguing about some probably academic point, and they'd get in these heated arguments, and then they'd physically start pushing each other around, if you can imagine. And then they would end up, if you've ever been to Mayapur, you just go across the road and there you are at the Ganges. They would be fighting in this flurry of stuff going by, and then they'd get to the banks of the Ganges and they created so much mud that the ladies there who were trying to get water, dipping their water pot in to get clean water, the water was so muddy that they couldn't even get the water. And then the Brahmins would come down, you know, trying to take a shower and put clean clothes on. They couldn't do that either because Nimai and Murari Gupta were causing such a kerfuffle. I couldn't take a bath. So I'm going to stop here. I know it's early, but I'm suspecting there's enough in that that maybe people have questions or comments they want to add. Maybe you know more about Murari Gupta than I do. You have a story you'd like to share, or anything about what I've just shared. Yeah, Ichwaku. Spiritual master. Like Saraswati.
At some point he commented that he wanted 10 million acharyas. Right? And so...
Was it 10?
Million.
Oh, 10 million. Oh, yeah. Okay.
10 million acharyas. See, those are his words, exact words. So my question to you is, and I have asked several Prabhupada disciples, and I have had many answers, and I'm assuming that all of them somewhat are similar. Well, I'm fallen, I'm this or that. And so my question is, from your perspective, why not? And I know there's a history of...
I know.
But your take on this.
Well, first of all, there are 5 different gurus, right? You know what they are. You're a Bhakti Shastri teacher, so what are they?
Diksha, Shiksha, Pravartana, Guru.
And what does he do?
The first one?
Yeah.
That encourages people to take up the process.
So it's the first person. It might be somebody who gives you a magazine on the street, right? A prasadam.
Yeah.
They're also teacher.
Yeah.
They show you the way, okay?
Yeah.
So you've got 3. What are the other 2?
I don't know.
I don't either. That's why I asked you.
I never heard all the 2.
It's a trick question. I know, but they're 5.
Yeah. But Prabhupada said acharyas. So I don't know if you're interpreting that acharyas as being...
Well, as far as I understand, an acharya is the one who sets an example.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have to decide what is the most important example that we're setting. Is it that we can put tilak on correctly? Or that we show up with, like me, I have my petticoat like 3 inches below my sari. I can't even dress myself, right? Is that the qualification of an acharya, is that they can externally go through the motions of ritual and puja and all of those things? and have hidden things going on that nobody knows about, right?
That wouldn't be Acharya then.
What?
That wouldn't be an Acharya then.
Well, but who's going to decide that, right? The way I am thinking is everybody should be engaged in sharing what they've learned. And in this way, they're following that instruction of Lord Caitanya. I don't believe that we can legislate who is your guru, honestly. I think that you love who you love. You're inspired by who you're inspired by. If you tell me, no, but you can't love that person, you've got to now love that person. It's like, but my heart is telling me this person is answering my questions to my full satisfaction. When I have a doubt, I go to that person repeatedly. Well, but they don't put their clothes on right, or they, whatever it is, they pick their nose or whatever they do. They're too human for that. And so I think when you look at, who was it? Was a little clay pot maker and was the spiritual master of, was that Mirabai?
Okay.
Was it? I can't remember. I mean, let's see who's too old and can't even remember who's who. Is that the characteristic of somebody who you can follow? Or is it somebody who actually has attained some mercy of Krishna and their somehow or their presence, their words impact you, that create heart change or transformation in your heart? And I think you can't legislate that. And it may be that you have one person who takes one person who is willing to take you on to train or take responsibility for you. But I think it's a very, very personal kind of thing, just like marriage. You're not legislating that. That's my personal opinion.
But my question also was in regards of, okay, that's from the point of view of the disciples. Who do we accept? I agree. But my question is also from the seniors, not only Prabhupada disciples, because now there are spiritual masters who are. Yeah. So why is that reluctance, shall we say? I know it's personal. You cannot be forced to be a guru, but...
Right. I think part of it is the paradigm we've been shown, is that you only see the guru sitting here. You don't live with him. Like in the ancient times, the guru was married, he had a griha, maybe had 10 disciples, that was it. Just like an apprentice. That was the model. And the apprentice, you're eating together in a little family environment, and the Guru Mata's, putting Band-Aids on, and you're in a family environment and nurturing people in Krishna consciousness. That's the real natural way, and that's the Vedic way it always has been. But now we have this enormous organization that is sort of morphed into a religious organization, and we kind of, when Prabhupada left, it wasn't super clear exactly how it was going to happen, and we made a lot of boo-boos, I think. And now we have it in our mind that the guru is not human. He doesn't go to the bathroom somehow. He doesn't belch. He doesn't have heartburn. And so I think we can learn a little bit from the Catholic paradigm, fully human but fully divine. But what is divine? Is it that you have angel wings, you're walking on water? Or is when you say something, or your example, is that inspiring enough for you to change your life? In fact, start chanting Hare Krishna yourself because of the faith you have in that person who inspires you. There are people in my life like that. I go, I want to be like that. That's who I want to be like. And I think you can't legislate that. I think to protect ourselves, it's important to know the Shastra and first become aware of who, obviously, Srila Prabhupada is all of our example. But before you pick a guru, you really need to know what that is and understand who that is. We're kind of connecting people to the whole parampara. It's not just to yourself, it's to others. To the whole lineage is what you're doing. And that Prabhupada is distinct in that he's a Shaktavesha avatar. Yeah, I still haven't answered the question. Why don't older devotees give initiation? I think right now they're so desperate, they just appointing different people, and they're not Prabhupada disciples even. Yeah. I think when you get to be my age, you're like, God, I'll be dead tomorrow. Do you really want to? if you really want to take initiation from me, I'm too old, But we saw with other devotees like Kadama Kanana, he was not a Prabhupada disciple, but he was such an effulgent, self-apparent. I mean, it was clear to everyone that he was a self-realized soul. You could see that. He had such potency, And so I think it's just a self-apparent, it's a self-manifest realization that people go, yeah, this person's totally in alignment, and people bless you for that. He also had enemies, It's not just because you, by vote, people say, oh yeah, we vote you should be a guru or an initiating guru, because sometimes there's envy too, people have, like Murari Gupta and Lord Caitanya, they were kids together, and if you've been in the movement as long as I have, I remember people when they were just kids, 20-year-old kids. I'm then like, now they're initiated guru. I'm like, I remember them when they were brahmacharis who couldn't even get their socks on, it's really a hard thing now to see people grow up and accept people in your own town, and so I think there's resistance there too. I don't know. I guess for you to do that, you'd have to be really sure that Krishna wanted you to do that, to take initiation. But in my view, Diksha and Shiksha are two different things. And if you're a Diksha guru, what you're doing is just hooking people up to a lineage. And it's not just about you, it's about Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta and pointing people. And you might have many people you take advice and instruction from. So for me, Diksha is kind of a formality. But where you get your knowledge and your insights is your choice. You've got to bear the consequences of those choices yourself. So I don't go around instructing people. I try to empower people to make their own choices, but educated choices. And then the question comes, how do I know, and I think this is where a lot of our legislation comes from, how do we protect people from being cheated by a cheater guru, right? That's the other thing. Is there some people who might be very jazzy or look like they're, impressive, and they don't know the backstory, and you can become enamored, and it's romantic. But how do you protect yourself from being cheated anyway? And my answer is that you have to be sincere about wanting real truth, because that's the only thing that's going to protect you from being cheated, is that your own desire is for authentic truth. But if you want something else, then you're probably going to get something else too, something mixed in.
So, for example, you are giving shelter, which is one of the...
Who's giving shelter?
You.
No, I'm not giving shelter.
Well, in terms of your support for several devotees, through your counseling and through your...
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
In my service. Yeah.
And you have taken that responsibility. I mean, it's I know it's hard work, and you have to sacrifice a lot. But what I'm saying is that, it's exemplary.
It's what?
Exemplary.
Exemplary.
That what you're doing, and sometimes we see that we may not want to do that. We may not want to take that responsibility. Like, I don't know how many people you have under or how many people you have helped, but I'm sure that it's in the hundreds, if not thousands. And so my question is, how can we take that jump and like yourself, it's a heroic thing to do, right? So because that's the order, right? You save people. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. And not many want to do. I just want to save myself, and that's it.
Prabhupada, was funny that he was telling his godbrothers, about going to the West. And they were like, oh, you're crazy to go, your age, you're going over there. And he said, well, you'd have to be a fool to do it, and not like you. He would say to his god, well, I guess I'm a fool for doing it at my age, because it's going to kill me. It's going to kill me in the end. And yeah, he suffered a lot to bring us Krishna consciousness. And so it's not easy managing my Karuna care thing. It's just really not. But thank goodness I've had the experience of being a mom and a grandmom. And Srila Prabhupada was very motherly that way. He saw us as his children. So as a mom and a grandma, I spend many nights up feeding the baby, changing the diaper, and Karuna cares my baby. Like Srila Prabhupada saw ISKCON as his baby. And for that, you can do enormous sacrifices, because if you love your creation or that service, you can not eat, sleep, be anxious, whatever it is, to keep that alive. And that's what motivates me to be able to, like, I've been up since 1:45 to midnight last night. I'm hoping to sleep after class. But as soon as I may be shuffling, getting up, oh God, I've got this meeting at midnight, and I shuffle around in the dark trying not to wake anybody up. And I get in front of the people that I'm trying to help, and immediately I have energy. I can be no sleep, like, oh, I really don't want to go meet them. Then just the energy's there, which tells me that somehow there's something supporting me there, and I suspect also being old. When you get old, you don't sleep, and Prabhupada used to laugh about himself that, I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't have sex, gosh, I must be liberated. You know that one. And I think as you get older, time is running out. I think that's been a motivator for me, and knowing that, having spent a lot of time and money to develop the skills that I have, that if I don't offer it back to to Prabhupada particularly and his ISKCON movement, then it was a waste of time. So at a certain moment during COVID, I just started on Janmashtami in 2019. I had nothing. I didn't know how to do I didn't know how to do a website. I didn't know anything. And but I just started moving. I just thought, okay, well, I just got to start. I don't know what to do. So I started, and I used to sit in Potomac Temple with one man would do the Bhagavatam class. I'd go down. I'm taking care of my 95-year-old man. I'd go down, and there was his wife sitting packing cookies, and I would sit pack cookies, And there were 3 of us in the Bhagavatam class. And one day, not knowing that I had just started writing out a plan for Karuna Care, I went out to the shoe room. I was at the shoe room, and she follows me out, and she goes, Mataji, I'd really like to help you in your service. And I go, I don't know what you think. What do you think I'm doing? I'm taking care of my 95-year-old mom 45 minutes away. And she said, I don't know what you're doing, but I'd like to help. And I go, oh God, what can you do? What skills have you got? Well, what do you need? Well, I need a website. I don't know how to do that. Oh, my husband can do that. So she went home and recruited him, and he made a very clunky website that the temple president goes, not so much. But then we found, it just sort of morphed like that. What's in front of me? What's in front of me? And my philosophy has developed in this way, in terms of realization and understanding what Krishna wants you to do. It's like you're in a dark room. We don't know what our next step should be. You have no vision because you're in a dark room with a little flashlight. But with a little flashlight, you can see about 4 feet in front of you. You see that much. That's probably all the knowledge you have. If you step into that light, the light goes further, and you just keep stepping. Stepping where you know is the next step, and you just keep, and it starts opening in that way. I swear I don't know how this whole thing has evolved. But it's my life now, and I probably will be die doing it. It's kind of become my service. Sometimes I wish I hadn't started. Like, what did you get yourself into? It's enormous. And these are not my disciples. I don't see them as my disciples. They all have their own disciples. Own spiritual masters. But it's interesting to me that so many disciples feel so uncared for by their own gurus that they're seeking out Karuna Care. It's like, where are you? If you have 10,000 disciples, how are you actually giving personal care to your disciples? If you think of the real paradigm of 10 disciples, a married couple, and they're just nurturing and committed to adopting them pretty much as their spiritual children. And that means taking care of everything, not just coming once a year, every 3 years, and giving a Bhagavatam class. It's an enormous responsibility. It's like being a parent. It really is, I don't know. I said a lot there. And we need to go eat breakfast. Anything else? Lucas, I can always count on you. Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you, Rambhoru, because you actually empower me quite a lot by having you around, so thank you very much for that.
Having me around.
Just your association advice and everything that you do. I was going to ask, you say that it's kind of morphed into a religion, and then some people don't call Krishna conscious a religion also, but they make connections with religion and different religions. So how can we what's the proper way of seeing Krishna consciousness?
It's a lifestyle. It's a culture. It's a lifestyle. You don't have to live in a temple to practice Krishna consciousness. But it's a really handy thing to have a place to meet, because it gets pretty tiring to have everybody coming over to your house every time and you have to clean up. I've seen this, in churches and stuff. You need a place where it's common ground and everybody in the community helps out and does that. But the way it all evolves, whether it's Hare Krishna or Buddhism or any of them, it starts with a teacher. And the teacher is sitting there teaching, to anybody who wants to listen. It's not discriminative. You don't have to sign up for a class. You just sit down like we do in the market. We go out and start handing out prasadam or books, and you just start talking to people. And if you have any power at all, people go, wow, that's really cool. I'd like to know more about that. So then people come, and they used to come and sit under a tree, and like in Jesus' time, you go, well, got to feed these people. You got 10,000 people eating, and then you start to think, well, how do we care for the people who are coming? They need to eat. They need probably at least modern day, you need a toilet or somewhere, we got to manage these people. And so what happens is, and maybe it's to our detriment, because Prabhupada says we can live under a tree. We don't need all these things. But we get attached to this comfort, and now we're fighting over who gets the room and who gets the heater and all that stuff. But how it evolves is that people think, well, hey, maybe we should buy some property. Maybe we need to get a building. And so they do a lot of fundraising, get a building. And then what happens is, to the detriment of all organized religions, is the focus becomes on the building and making money and maintaining that building, and the people are still starving. And this is the whole example of the bird in the cage. You're polishing the cage, and the bird is starving inside. So we have to really be careful that we don't just focus on projects over people. The projects are meant for the people. The people are not meant for the projects, although they're very intertwined. And if the more corporate we become, the more risk we have of impersonalism and all of that. So my vision is, and I tell my Karuna Care people who find themselves a home with the service that we're doing, but you also have people who do cows and deity worship, and they're all different departments. And if you love doing a service, connect with those people, find your people, and that are like-minded, they share your mood, and then in this way, in the big, enormous thing, comes down to a little smaller group where it's manageable and you have personal relationship, and you are not invisible in a big organization, because there's a lot of people in this organization as well as other organizations that are feeling lonely in the middle of a crowd. We sing together, we eat together, but nobody knows each other. How is that possible? In a community, it means communication, right? So, yeah, we need to work on that a little bit, and that's kind of part of what I do, trying to create connection, because it's so juicy to get to know the people you're working with. There's pretty saintly people here, right here in this room, Yeah. I guess it's breakfast time. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.